Good evening.
Good evening,
everybody. I'm all right. Yeah, it's been manic. How is everybody? You're all right.
Yeah.
Good. You're all right. I'm all right. The world is a good place. I have come up with a topic for this week. I hadn't posted it, but the topic for this week is failure. So we'll talk about failure. Have we not done that before, have we? I don't think so.
Not actually failure.
Not
no.
actually failure. Okay.
We've done something.
Good.
Have we done something similar?
We've
Probably.
done negative and not actual failure.
That's the danger. We are going to start
We've been working our way up to it.
after a year and a half doing it every week, struggling to come up with new. Well, it's always new, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
There's
because
always a new moment. So whatever
we're
the
all
topic
in
is,
different
even if it was the
places.
same topic every week it would still be a new
Yeah.
topic.
mindful, be in the moment, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Well, let's do our nice exercise to start with and get us all fully in the moment, and then we can have a chat about failure. So start by just having a look around, seeing what you can see. And then when you've looked around, you can close your eyes and bring your attention to your body. And we'll start at the top and become aware of your head. Moving down to your neck and down to your shoulders. And as you become aware of that, just allow it to release out. Then move down the spine. Be aware of gravity pulling down through the spine, down into your pelvis and your bottom, pressing into the seat. And be aware of your back pressing against the back of the seat, if it is. Aware of your feet in contact with the floor. Aware of your clothes against your skin, your legs, your arms, on your chest. And aware of the movement of air as it happens moment by moment. And take a breath through the nose and just be aware of smell. Aware of taste in the mouth. And then we can begin to listen. And for the next few moments, just be aware of sound as it happens. And if your mind wanders, bring that awareness back to listening. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you.
All right, mate?
Apologies for being late.
It's all right. It is what it is. The topic for this week is failure. So, bringing my own life into this, as I sometimes do, I have experienced failure over the last week or so. Things I have, small things that I've failed at, where I've failed to remember, and others, you know, a particular incident where somebody asked me to do something and I said that I could do it with the help of my friends, and we did our best, but ultimately it didn't work out and we failed to deliver. So I was thinking about it from a mindful perspective. What with this being a mindfulness group and everything. And at first I was thinking about that point of failure, that point when you have to make the decision. Because you could just keep relentlessly going and going and going until somebody else takes that responsibility away from you and says, look, enough. That's enough now, it ain't working. Or there's a step before that where you make the decision yourself and you say, it's not working, I need to knock this on the head now and hold my hands up. So, and I was thinking about that point. And I suppose in terms of illustrating what mindfulness isn't, there is I suppose a misconception that being mindful comes with this attitude of, oh well, you know, whatever happens, and you know, if things don't go right, then you just accept it and you move on. And it can be quite a lackadaisical, there's a nice word, attitude that people have. Where they don't seem to really care. But that's not what being mindful is. It's not about... whilst it's about acceptance and not labelling things as good or bad, it's not about giving up. So if that concession to failure shouldn't be carried out like that, what should it prompt it? Is it, I suppose for starters, is it okay to do that? You know, is it okay when you get to a point to say enough is enough, or if you're being truly mindful, should you persevere and stay in the moment and stick with it?
I think it depends if you're enjoying it, or if you're really enthusiastic about improving where you're at, or whether you just accept, like, maybe this is just not.
But that's it. You're right there. That's interesting. There's that idea of maintaining that enthusiasm and if that's still there, then yes, you should potentially. Yeah, you should potentially carry on.
Also, depending on if you're playing the market, of course.
Well, there is that as well.
And that can be very painful. And you can be aware that something's wearing you out. And you can be aware you need to do something about it.
Yeah. So that's it. So there's a reason there, particularly if things are going badly, why it's really important to maintain your awareness so that you can be aware of all of those influencing factors, because that will inform your decision. Because I suppose if you're making an informed decision, if you're not just going, oh, whatever, it ain't working. If you're actually in the moment and you're aware of the situation, aware of how you feel, aware of what your main motivation is, aware of those external influences, aware of what opportunities there may exist, or aware of the fact that there are no opportunities. You know, what's the alternative? As long as you are aware of that and can bring that to your decision making, then I think it is entirely appropriate, and perhaps, you know, in some instances, a sign of strength to be able to say, no, we need to sack this one off.
Failure is very difficult to deal with.
It can be, yeah. Well, that's it. I think that's why there's that.
Yeah.
Also, why there's a reticence.
Yeah.
To sometimes people give up, but then they don't. Are not able to admit and
That's right.
accept the failure.
That's right.
So they give up a long time ago, and they sort of go through the motions. But to actually, yeah, as you say, to actually admit to yourself, this is a failure, can be quite painful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that will be driven by ego.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about ego, and it's ego that would throw up that kind of argument, throw up that kind of obstacle towards doing it.
I think also being in the face of failure can make you tap into resources that you didn't know you
It
had.
can be.
Yes.
Yeah, it can do.
I found
Yeah.
that.
Definitely. Yeah.
For example, I was like acting in China and I had to do something to speak in Chinese. And I didn't know the lines, and I didn't really understand what I was saying, but I kept persevering and persevering, and just went away from the crowd and just rehearsed my lines and that. Part of me was a run, you know, because that's like the instinct, like shit, you know. I can't do this. So I kept going and it all worked out and panned out right in the end, but it was like, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, that's the thing. Is there such a thing as success or failure? Because the moment moves on. The moment moves on, and if we can take things from that failure, we can learn our lessons or do whatever it is that needs to be done as a result. But it does always move on. You know, I remember many times as a child getting myself worked up about something. You know, if there was something that was happening at school, I knew I had to go and talk to a teacher because I hadn't done something that I was supposed to do. And you'd feel the anxiety building. But I was always able to say to myself, no, it'll be all right. There'll be that moment, and then there'll be another moment, and everything will work. And it always did. Things always had a way of working out for themselves. And yes, when I collared my friend to say, "Oh, I'm really sorry. We haven't been able to do what we said we could do," it was fine. He was all right, and he just said, "Well, you know, I get it. I asked you to do it at the last minute. These things happen." But going back to that non-mindful way of being, which is this sort of really laid-back, uninterested, unmotivated way of being. Another way that we know that that is not a mindful approach is because being mindful isn't easy. It takes effort. Yeah, it takes effort. It takes conscious effort to remind yourself, to bring your awareness to this moment, to be aware of your mind wandering and dwelling on the past or the future, or doing all of those things that are not mindful. It takes effort to maintain that level of awareness, to be able to pick up on these things. So actually, to be mindful is hard work, and takes practice. And you can't approach that if you've got that. You can't. So in that sense, moving on from that, what is it to fail at being mindful? And I suppose it's that. If you adopt that relaxed attitude and say, "Oh well, I had a try at being mindful. I tried a bit of mindfulness, but it was too much like hard work."
I think
Does that mean you failed at it?
I think failure in mindfulness is not being mindful.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
And I've done a lot this week.
That's it. I suppose the thing is, the thing is, if we take this, if we take this view that if we don't, if we are prepared to accept that something's gone wrong and walk away from it, and I had it.
I interrupted.
No, you didn't interrupt. I interrupted myself. The brain went on to the next thing, and my mindfulness failed me. And it's all now gone tumbling down. No, but so failing to be mindful is not practicing mindfulness, not bringing mindfulness, not bringing your awareness to the present moment. And so, we could argue quite easily that it's impossible to fail at mindfulness, because failure would always refer back to those past failed attempts. You know, if you are able to be mindful in this moment, you are succeeding. It doesn't matter whether you've led the most unmindful life existence up until that point. You haven't failed to be mindful. It's a past event. Now, if you bring your awareness to the present moment now, then that is success. If it then goes again and you aren't able to bring yourself to the present moment for a whole week, is that failure? Well, only during those moments that you weren't being mindful. As soon as you bring your awareness back to the present moment, we're not failing anymore. You're succeeding. And so I suppose it's the way we tend to live in a very black and white world, don't we? And we label things, it's either good or bad. Success or failure. But when we try and apply that to mindfulness, obviously the truth is that it is two sides of a coin. It's not success or failure. It is what it is in that moment.
And also it depends how you measure success and failure. Because people apply different rules.
They do.
If you haven't got a nice car and a nice house and 2.4 children and a dog, whatever, then you're failed as a
Yeah.
you know.
As a specimen, exactly.
But that's bullshit.
Well, it is. Well, exactly, because it's just stuff. It's just stuff, and it doesn't have anything to do with the real you. You being alive and you enjoying being a living being. So yeah, it's actually quite easy to measure the success or failure, because in that, when you get to that measurement, then it is one or the other. You're either in it or you're not. So it's an easy thing for you to gauge, and it's only something that can be gauged moment by moment. And if you have struggled to be mindful, you haven't failed.
You could also argue that, for example, if you're trying to become a better person in some respect,
yes,
and you're generally going in the right direction, but you have a crap day, or you go backwards, you never really fail because you're still going forwards, you just don't one step backwards.
Exactly, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's not black or white. It's this fluctuating thing, and we've talked before about what it is that defines us, you know, and it's not the clothes that you wear, it's not the ideas that you have in your head, it's not your actions, so it's not your successes and failures. You know, the area where it starts, it becomes grayer. You know, there are those inspirational figures that we have, great leaders, great entrepreneurs, creative minds, artists, all of those people. And you know, many of them will talk about being defined by their failures, or the fact that they failed so much more than they succeeded, and that is what made them into the person that they are. And so that's where I can sometimes find myself varying down two different paths, because obviously I greatly admire a lot of these people, and I admire their achievements, and I admire their creation, and I admire their approach, the hard work and the dedication that they put into it, and admire the fact that they did fail many times but persevered. And then also, there's the other side of it where I'm talking about there is no success or failure, they are just labels, none of it really matters. all this stuff that these people created ultimately isn't them, and yet they are so passionate about it. And you know, I have so much admiration and enjoyment of the stuff that they create, and yet I'm also painfully aware of the fact that all of this success is just superfluous. And that's where it can become quite difficult for me.
You can be a very successful businessman, let's say, but be a bad parent. You've always been at work.
Yeah, it's a story that I've told before, and it's about the successful businessman, and he turns to his son and says, "It's your birthday next week. What do you want for your birthday? You can have anything you like. I've got loads of money, and I'm willing to buy you for your birthday whatever you want." And the kid just turns to him and says, "Well, all I want for my birthday, Dad, is for you to be there." And so that's touching on the real being, being in the moment. As for success and failure, so there's no way to fail at being mindful if you make a commitment within yourself to be as mindful as you can be. Because as long as there is that return to awareness as often as you are able, then you are succeeding. The more you do it, obviously, the more success you are likely to enjoy, or maybe the less failure you are likely to enjoy. Depends how you want to look at it. But as for the endeavours of the greats, well, I don't feel that at this point I'm in a position to criticise.
There is always the question of whether it was achievable in the first place.
Well, there is that as well. Yes, bringing it back to where we kind of started.
On the flip side of that, say if the mind can perceive, it can achieve.
Well, there is that.
Nice.
You see, that's another area, because that's it. You know, I've done a lot of reading and a lot of investigation into that belief. If somebody believes that they can do something, then the chances are they can. And that's difficult, because that's a forward projection. That's you thinking, oh, this thing in the future that I can achieve, I absolutely believe that I can do it. And you nurture that belief and you carry on with it, and then you do. You succeed. You achieve that seemingly impossible thing. Now, how mindful, if we're being truly, strictly mindful, is that? To project that into the future and put so much emphasis on some future event, because...
Well, you're thinking in the present moment.
But then that's it. I suppose that's the angle that you can take, isn't it?
Yeah.
You place that...
mindful each step along the way.
Yeah, if you can bring... Yes, you're absolutely right. You can bring mindfulness to that, because you can be mindful in the way that you develop that belief. Because mindfulness isn't just about what's happening externally. It's about what's happening internally. And if you are aware that that belief is forming, and you can place value in that, and you can see the impact that that will have, then yes, you would be absolutely right to develop that, and to develop that moment by moment. And then as long as you make a commitment through the application of that belief to be as mindful as you can be along the way, then probably your chances of success are probably increased, because being mindfulness along that path will make you aware of the opportunities that there are.
So if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right.
Well, it was Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah.
As soon as you think, I can't do this, then you'll fail. Yes. Unfortunately, when I had my endeavour the other week, which ultimately failed, we did, for as long as possible, maintain we can do this. We can do this. We do that, we do that, we do that, sort that out, we can do this. Didn't quite work out. Best intentions with it. Okay. Let's have a breathe.
But did you learn from it?
Oh yes. Oh yes, we learned a lot.
In a positive way, in a nice way, in a happy way.
No, definitely. There was no, we got a bit stressed. But it was all that, any stress that was generated was used positively. There was no bickering. There was no revolt. There was no throwing of things at all. It was all very calm.
No crosswords.
No, not really. There might have been the odd. But any profanity was delivered mindfully. Absolutely in the moment, with maximum impact and awareness of any ears that may be around that shouldn't be listening to it. Just to make sure it was all. So there was success in that department. Swearing was unmitigated.
Talking of failure.
And it gave me something to talk about this week as well. Go on.
It's funny how when you pass your driving test,
Yes.
and your driving instructor will say, you know what, you won't remember this piece of paper and how many points and everything else, that's not important. And you think, at the time it is, but then afterwards you think, you know, he's so right. It's not important. But when you tell somebody, oh, you know what, I passed my driving test last year, they go, oh, did you pass it first time? And you think, what has that got to do with you? And then you go, no, how many times? You know.
I start to write on
how many times? Oh, you did what? How many failures you? And so that.
And we measure other people by
You're judging by your failure.
Judging, and yet that doesn't mean that they necessarily are a better driver for the first time.
No.
So a failure, or however many failures before you pass, is irrelevant.
When you get to my age, you can honestly say, I can't remember.
But you read so many stories about successful people that had so much failure. The one that they often cite is the fella behind Kentucky Fried Chicken. What was his name?
Oh yeah, he was 70-something, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, Colonel Sanders. That's it. So he was approaching retirement. He was about to retire, and he thought, I have no nest egg, I have no pension. If I retire now and stop working, I'm going to be starving within 5 years. So he thought, I know. My mum gave me this fantastic recipe for fried chicken. I think I could sell that. I think if I went to various restaurants, I could sell them a license to use this recipe. So he worked out this plan whereby they'd pay him royalties, kind of like royalties, for them to use it. And so then he started approaching restaurants, and they just went, "No, we've got our own fried chicken recipe made. What do we need another one for? So good about yours." And he was constantly knocked back. Everybody just kept saying no, all the time. No. But he persevered. He carried on. Maybe it's going back to that belief. He believed in it. He believed that there was something there, and there was also that drive because he knew he needed something that he could have as an income when he retired because he had no nest egg to rely on. So yeah, I suppose there's that. We were talking earlier about motivation, so that was there. And then ultimately, he found somebody, found a restaurant that would say, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll give it a whirl," and the rest is global domination type history. Because there's
genetically modified.
well, maybe it is now. I don't think that was in the original recipe. And of course, it made him a hugely wealthy man. But if he'd maybe, I don't know how mindful he was being. I don't know if there was a point when if he'd been absolutely aware, he kind of would have gone, you know what, this ain't working. Was he mindful and just was mindful of his belief and mindful of his determination to succeed? Or was he just you know,
I mean, quickly learn the law of numbers.
blind, in a fit of almost blind aggression, just carried on. No, I will not give in. But if they measured him by that, you know, the same yardstick that you just mentioned, if they measured him by his level of failure, they'd have gone, well, what an idiot. But they don't measure him by that, they measure him by the number of restaurants that are open with his face on them. So yeah, you can't win, can you?
Unless you fail.
Unless you...
Well, yeah, it's true, isn't it?
You fail a lot.
Yeah, you've got to fail a lot to succeed. Yeah,
It makes for a better
the
story,
numbers
doesn't
game,
it?
you know, it's 10 sales, you know,
Well,
you've got to knock on 100
bad news
doors
is
to
good
get
news.
10
Exactly.
sales.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 10 sales might be from the 91st to the 100th.
Yeah.
They might be the first one,
Exactly.
or maybe the second, but they'll be there somewhere.
And on that, you know, with that in mind, this idea that success comes through failure, it's true of mindful practice. You know, the practice of maintaining your awareness in this moment is being aware when your mind has wandered, being aware when there's been that little failure and bringing it back. And of course, it's about the more times that you're able to do that. If you can continually keep failing, spotting that you've failed and bringing it back, failing, bringing it back, failing, bringing it back, then that's you cultivating your mindful practice. So yes, in the same way, a successful mindful practice can be built on repeated failure.
I think it can be a difficult one to step off because when you're caught in it, the driver is, no, I'll just do this, and I'll just do this, and I must get this done, and you know, you can keep going on. But the most effective way really is to say, I'm going to be mindful, because then your resources are your energy is not wasted.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And you're more effective because you're being more mindful, and that is a fact. But the driver is, I'll just do this first, I'll just do this, and I'll just do this, and you get caught up in it, and forget. I find even for myself, you forget to be mindful, and get worn out. It's not the way. It's not the best way.
It's not the best way. You're right.
It's not the best way.
You're right. Okay, let's breathe. So you may close your eyes if you wish. No, I wasn't. It sounds like I was cutting you off there, Jess.
No, you wouldn't, Jess. No,
I was Jess, but I wasn't.
I've been waiting about 2.5 weeks for this, Jess.
Well, I'll best make it a good one. So close your eyes if you wish. And bring your awareness to your breath. And just be aware of the air entering and leaving the body, breath by breath, moment by moment. When you breathe in, you feel alive. When you breathe in, you return to the body. When you breathe in, you succeed. Breathe out, you smile. You smile at life. You release the breath. And you release all that you are clinging on to. rest in that still, silent peace that surrounds and permeates everything. And for the next few moments, just maintain that awareness of the pause and that awareness of the stillness that exists within it. Breathe in and feel alive. We breathe out, release and smile at life. And we allow that smile to dissolve into the pause between the breath. We allow our being to dissolve into that still silent peace that exists in the pause between breaths. You may open your eyes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully see you next week.